Okay, so I bet everybody's curious because I already saw somebody in the chat say, the Joker's the bad guy, right? So explain this to people because that's what we kind of get every time we talk about, like, Thanos is like Jesus. People are like, he's not like Jesus. He's mean. He wants to kill everybody. So why would you say that Thanos or Joker is like Jesus? Why would Hollywood make the bad guy like Jesus?
So think about it like this. If you actually could go up and have a conversation with Satan and you said, hey, tell me what Jesus is like, how do you think you'd respond? He's not going to tell you that he's your friend and that he's the most loving individual.
He's a tyrant.
He's going to point the finger at him and say, you're the evil one, and you're the one that wants to come and destroy everybody when I'm the one that's trying to save everybody. Yeah. So he's flipping the story upside down. So these are really like dark, occultic, satanic views of Jesus, and I think you'll really see by the end of this conversation how and why they're doing that.
All right, let's get into this. How is the Joker like Jesus? Let's see this.
Okay, so let's dive into the story a little bit, but before we get to that, I want to point something out that that there is a story that Joaquin Phoenix played. He played Jesus the year before he was there playing the role of Joker, and I don't think this stuff is by accident, right? So here's just kind of a little.
It's almost like his prep role or something.
Right,
we want you to be the Joker, but first you got to play Jesus.
So here's a little clip of this. This is the role of this. It's not really. How do we get that to play there? Okay, so if I go like this. Okay, so here he is right here playing the role of Jesus, and how do you get it to play?
Good question. Oh, down here, yeah.
Is it this one?
All right. So 2018.
2018, he played Jesus, and so I want to kind of just show you why that's really interesting in light of they kind of do this in Hollywood. Look at in the Star Wars series, the one that played Anakin Skywalker's mother. She also played the Mother Mary of Jesus. And if you haven't seen that one on Star Wars, it's really showing how Darth Vader is really a representation of Jesus as well.
Yeah, and for one, he wore this chest plate with these colored buttons on it, like the high priest. He was... They call him Lord Vader, which means father. He, if you read the comics and in the movie, he didn't have an earthly father. The woman was pregnant. She says, I don't know how I became pregnant, but I gave birth to him.
He's the prophesied one.
The prophesied chosen one.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons why this is kind of an illustration for that. And so I just wanted to point that out so that you guys can see this is not like the first time that they do this. This is what they're putting out there. They make these characters that are already getting sort of branded into people's minds.
Well, yeah, imagine if the actor of The Chosen suddenly played Batman or something,
Exactly.
You wouldn't be able to get out of your head like, that's Jesus playing Batman right now.
Exactly. So check that out. So let's talk about the very next year later, they have the Joker movie put out. And I don't know why it keeps going back to that. So the very next year, Joker comes out. There's some imagery here that is between the Joker and his mom. And notice the picture up in the middle between him and his mom is the Mother Mary.
Yeah, that's a subliminal nod to the two people you see right here represent Jesus and Mary.
Yeah, and they keep showing you this kind of imagery and this kind of angle. And so there's a scene where he's like washing his mom and they start discussing who his actual father is. She never tells him. So right here she said your father is actually Thomas Wayne, which is Bruce Wayne's dad. Listen to this.
It's going to help us.
You worked for him, what, 30 years ago? Why would he help us?
Because Thomas Wayne is a good man.
So Thomas Wayne, had an affair with this woman 30 years ago, so we know he's 30 years old.
And notice she said she got impregnated by someone who's a good man. What did Jesus say? There's none good but my Father in heaven.
This is true.
Dude, we're still connecting dots right here.
This is true. So he goes and confronts Thomas, and here's this interaction with his dad.
I am a doctor. And he fucks my mother. Jesus.
Oh, by the way, he throws that out there, and it's kind of like how they use in the Matrix as well. How they're really they're kind of throwing these words out there that are associating. I mean, think about how these things get planted inside of our brains, right? In the Matrix, when they were talking about Neo, there was many references to Jesus, and they would throw it out there like it was like a blasphemous cuss word, but all those things are just kind of subtly planting.
When he was buying drugs, or no, he was getting that hacker disc or whatever, he's like, you're my own personal Jesus, man.
That's right. So these things, I think, are purposeful. So back to the story. He is...
here, just to recap, so you can hear he says, you're my Father, and he looks at him and he says, Jesus.
And he fucks my mother. Jesus.
Okay, so after this, listen to what he says about he was not the Father. Listen to this.
Well, my mother told me everything, and I had to talk to you.
Look, pal, I'm not your father. What's wrong with you?
Look at us. I think you are.
Well, that's impossible. Because you were adopted, and I had to sleep with your mother.
Wow.
So, it's just kind of an interesting little parallel. He lives with his mother, and here he is, the mom supposedly got pregnant, but...
30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years ago.
Ministry.
And in this, there is also a lot of imagery where you'll see these kind of like Christ poses and stuff. So one of the scenes that they had put out there a lot was this bathroom scene where he's kind of dancing, and then there's something I want to point out about this scene. Go ahead and press play. So notice how he just showed you his wrists right there. And if you actually kind of slow this down and stop it, he doesn't seem to have a mark on his wrist, but you see it right here. There's a mark literally right there on his wrist, which is kind of just a very interesting thing. And as he continues to get to dance, he ends this scene by appearing like he is in the shape on a cross. And
yeah, we see this a lot. A lot of villains, they'll hold their arms out in this crucifixion pose, just nodding to the audience that, yeah, this is subliminally putting in your mind. You often see Jesus in that pose on the cross, but this is always associated with the villain.
So here's a scene from the beginning where they're kind of just playing this kind of cross theme out in different scenes. The way the camera is positioned, the way that the dolly slides across things, I mean, all of these are very thought out, very purposeful.
He was just persecuted
like
Christ.
Exactly. He was just beat up just like Christ, and here they're kind of showing you a sign. I mean, there's just a lot of times that he stands here in this type of a pose. To me, that's purposeful. I mean, this is not just one experience out of the entire story. Here he is as people are like lifting him up and praising him. He has his arms outstretched.
And they're looking like him. They're wearing masks of him. And this isn't just because we're religious zealots. I actually looked up, is there any Jesus parallels in the Joker movie? And I saw multiple posts on Reddit from people that said, I'm not a Christian, but I noticed in the Joker that it's like when I don't know if he died, but they said that they put him on the hood of the car, which was like his death scene, and then he stands up in this crucifixion scene. They said that's like his resurrection. Yeah.
So when he's at the comedy club, there's an interesting word for the comedy club. It says pogos in the background, and where they got that from is kind of really disturbing in my opinion, but it really goes along with the theme of this movie. As they're talking about mental health, Pogo was the name of the clown from John Wayne Gacy, and he was a famous serial killer who had killed a bunch of people. In fact, people were also commenting that the makeup was very inspired by this particular individual.
So to why would this be like this? Because Satan is trying to make you think that Jesus is a serial killer. He killed all those people in the flood. He killed all those people in Sodom and Gomorrah's day, and he's going to come back and burn everyone you love when he destroys the earth. And so that's what Satan is trying to program in your mind, that Jesus doesn't love you. He wants to kill everyone you love.
That's right. And there's many references to this clown actually in the background of this first one. There's a scene with the clock and there's clowns in the background. But this imagery is also throughout the different comic books that are written about the Joker. There's a comic book that you see this imagery on the stained glass. I mean, that's pretty unmistakable.
Yeah, you see the halo, the stained glass is representative of the church. You got Joker wearing exactly what Jesus wore, the sash and the robe and all that.
Right.
Why associate Joker with Jesus?
Right. And so, this kind of stuff, it just look at what the bottom of this picture says right here. It says, "Thou shalt kill."
Which that's directly from the Ten Commandments, a flipped-in version of the Ten Commandments. So again, why are you associating our harmless media entertainment with the Bible?
Right. This is actually another comic book where they are putting Jesus as the Joker on the cross. Yeah. Here's another one. We're kind of blurring some stuff out because there's some very inappropriate pictures here. But look, they have the 4 horsemen.
And the angels sounding their trumpets.
Yeah.
So they're associating Joker and his girlfriend with Christ, with end times prophecy, with the crucifixion.
Yeah, these are very purposeful, and it's not just that Joker. There's Jared Leto's Joker that he played from the Suicide Squad, yeah. And they released this image, and this is like crazy blasphemy. Yeah. Here's a picture of him laying on the ground. You notice you have this kind of like sun-looking motif behind him. But what's interesting about this picture is look at the pose that he is sitting there and laying on the ground.
Yeah, his leg is bent and a bent knee, and he's got his arms stretched out. This is the exact pose of...
Yes, the Hanged Man from the tarot card. And so in the the Dark Knight, that was one of the Batmans that Heath Ledger was in, there was a scene where he was thrown off of the roof and Batman catches him and wheels him up by this leg, and this is literally the scene from the end climax of the movie, The Dark Knight. And Grant Morrison, who was a writer for DC for a long time, he mentioned, like it says right here at the bottom, that this was the Hanged Man from the tarot. This particular scene right here.
So we're not just making something out of nothing. This was actually admitted by one of the guys who works on DC stuff, on Batman stuff.
That's
correct.
correct.
On Suicide Squad, he's in the pose, and this movie's in the pose. And then here's an interesting clip from that documentary.
At the midnight hour, the fates of the just and the unjust will be decided. A reference to the judgment at the prophetic midnight hour. Batman hurls the Joker off the roof just in time to save the day, only to wheel him back up from his left leg. Suspended between 2 posts, the Joker has his arms stretched out in a crucifixion pose. With the camera angle reorientating him right side up, he has the appearance of Christ hanging on the cross, much like the tarot card called the Hangman, which has a man hanging in the shape of an upside-down cross.
So this right here is from tarotteachings.com. We brought this up in that documentary, The Replacement Gods That We Made. But listen to what this tarot card actually means. To yield, to suspend, surrender, sacrifice, submission. Those are all terms that you would associate with Jesus.
Yeah. And I mean, also the hanged man, Jesus was hanged on a cross, so it's definitely a representation of that.
And just to kind of, also show you that they are putting these things in movies, the very next film that Heath Ledger was in, where he actually passed away while the filming this thing, there was all kinds of occult stuff. You can see the all-seeing eye and the checkered floor and stuff in this poster. Very, very, very strange movie, but layered with satanic and evil occult things. They showed the Hanged Man tarot card, and
this really proves that they do the same things with these actors. If an actor played Jesus and then he plays the Joker, or an actress plays Mary and then she plays the mother of Darth Vader.
Right. There's some serious purposeful things that are not only happening just in that movie, but they're actually
crossover.
Yeah, they're crossing over. There's also some dynamics here of they, in the comic book world or even the occult world, they label Jesus as they call him the cosmic joke or the holy fool. You'll hear him talk about. And the Joker right here is referred to this as the holy fool. Listen, he says, I am the holy fool, the cosmic joker. Wow. And so these kind of ideas are just deeply interwoven into the occult. And listen to this. If you just typed in the Joker fool archetype in the Google, and you just see what is this this character that they're calling the Joker or the Fool. This came from a website that was kind of like trying to get to the bottom of this particular idea.
It's a pro tarot. This is not like some conspiracy theory website. This is from witches.
And it says the great fool or the great father of all, being depicted as a jester or clown-like figure. He is often a metaphor for the supreme being. Well, who's a father that's the supreme being?
Right.
Utilized in the hermeneutic texts such as the tarot, God from the hermeneutic perspective as well as the Jewish perspective is similar to an evil clown, and that he's apathetic at best and even cruel and sinister quite often, because he is the origin of what we perceive as evil. He, the Lord, does all things.
Wow.
So look at that. They're calling the Creator, the Supreme Being, the God, the Father of everybody,
an evil clown.
They're calling him an evil clown. And at the top right up here, there's even a quote right here that says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace. I create evil. What? I, the Lord, do all these things.
There's only one person that fits.
Yeah.
I mean, Satan cannot create light and day and create peace and all these things.
Right. So these guys that are making these comic books and stuff, they know very well who they're discussing. They're saying the Joker is Jesus. Well, then Batman, he's a demon, right?
That's what to be a counterpart.
Yeah, he's the counterpart. He's got to be the evil one. And so this kind of a story is really putting sympathy for the devil. Batman, we discussed this one in length on our documentary called The Replacement Gods 2. But these are just some comic books. You can see they call him the Son of the Demon or Tales of the Demon or Birth of the Demon. The storyline that Grant Morrison, when he wrote for Batman, of course, number 666 was a comic book, a real comic book that was talking about Batman in Bethlehem as it's burning. And this is Grant Morrison. He's one of the writers for DC Comics, and he actually was going to die. He got really sick, and all of a sudden, a being showed up to him, and it's very interesting who he says this being is.
I was sweating constantly. I was getting fevers and having these shakes and rigors and then freezing. I just couldn't get up anymore, and I lay in front of the fireplace in my house.
And when he thought he was going to die, when he broke down in tears, and he was delirious, man, delirious.
And suddenly this giant column of light comes through the door. And bear in mind, I'm hallucinating, but this was one of the most amazing hallucinations I've ever had. And it's Jesus. The first thing he said was the thing I put in the comic. Just this voice suddenly announced itself. I am not the God of your fathers, I am the hidden stone that breaks all hearts. So then he said to me, okay, you're about to die now, but you don't have to die. And so I really don't want to die. What do I have to do? And he said, well, if you want to stay here, you have to work for us. You have to spread the light.
Wow. Dude.
So isn't that pretty crazy that basically he is saying that he's admitting right here that this particular being showed up and said that he was going to let him die. But if you want to live, you need to serve us and you need to share the light.
So he was writing a comic book, and he wrote that the guy broke out in boils. He broke out in boils. He wrote that the guy was almost dying, and he began to almost die. And then all of a sudden this being shows up and says, write what we tell you to write and you won't die. You think this guy's not going to write what this evil spirit's telling him to write. He's writing satanic propaganda and making them comic books.
Yes. So I'm going to give you a little window into his art that he thinks he's spreading the light. And it's some pretty just like evil satanic stuff. There's people on upside down crosses. This stuff is just like crazy blasphemous. There's also a story where Batman, he ends up selling his soul to the devil and becomes like a worker for the devil. So I mean,
one of the reasons that
these things are not just like randomly put out there. It's
Right.
like they're actually telling you, like, hey, look, Batman is a demon,
And he's being told what to write.
Right.
By a spirit.
So here's another DC comic writer talking about who Batman is. Listen to this.
one of the reasons that Batman has been so popular for so long is his iconography is that of a demon. I mean, look at the paintings of medieval paintings of devils in museums, the bat wings, the horns. He looks like something that's dark and evil, and his origins are in an act of murder, and yet he's on your side.
He's on your side.
Yes. So look at what's happening here. This is them really telling you that Batman is the hero of the story, but he's really a representation of the devil. I didn't say that. That was a comic book DC writer that said that.
Yeah. It's interesting that he said that that's what makes it a successful comic. He goes, the reason Batman's been so successful is because he's based off of a demon. It's like, what?
Right. So this is not us just like randomly putting these ideas out here and just throwing them out there randomly. I mean, they are really seriously also as well putting these ideas out there, and they're not shy about it. So here's another clip of Grant Morrison. The guy on the right was one of the writers for Batman and Superman for a long time. The guy on the left was from a band called My Chemical Romance, and he also is a comic book writer. But listen to what he says about what they believe like comic books and stuff really are doing.
Being fans of something, be it from Buffy to Superman, anything else, the real diehard fans, I think there's almost a reason that they call us all disciples in a weird way, because I do think there's that connection of mythology that we almost take it so personally, because it is, in a lot of weird ways, and people are going to hate me for saying this, religion or mythology. It's our guideline to get our moral code and our integrity and our courage. We actually use them as a basis. And then it made me think, well, if that's the case, and it actually is, like pop culture is actually the new mythology. So if that's the case, like what a crazy power that any of us wield. I described it to him as it's almost like you're doing an ongoing series of the Bible.
I mean, those are some pretty crazy words coming from the guys that are making this stuff. And this is not just some Christian crazy person in a tin hat and an Airstream out in the middle of the desert that are saying these things. This is them. They're writing these things.
The bald guy Grant Morrison saying that Spirit's giving me this, and Gerard Wade saying this is where we get our moral code. We get our moral code from the demonic books that we put out, and this is pop culture is a new mythology.
Right. So continuing on, there is some imagery in here in some of the Batmans that I want to point out because it'll make sense to you towards the end of this conversation. The Joker sitting on a throne, he's high up. In the end, he's dancing with a woman in white, and actually where that scene takes place, where Batman and the Joker kind of battle it out, is in a cathedral.
Wow.
It's in a church, and I find that just very fascinating. But see, they throw these things at you like this. Jack Nicholson was quoted famously in this movie, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? That was kind of a thing he'd always say.
So you think it's the devil. Notice the horns and stuff. This is what I try to tell people when they're like, no, that can't be the devil because look how mean he looks or whatever. That's what propaganda is. You take a picture of a political figure or whatever, and you spray paint horns on him, which, mind you, the devil doesn't even have horns. He's an angel of light. Right. But you take an image of a person and you spray paint horns on them and make them appear to be the villain. And that's what Satan's doing with Jesus all the time.
Right. And so let's go over a little bit of history of some of these Batman stories so you can kind of also get a context of what's going on. This particular story was Batman Returns, and this is the one that Tim Burton did. This is right in the opening scene. There's a mother and a father pushing a basket with a baby in it in a river. And who do we know that is?
Yeah, that's the story of Moses.
The story of Moses, right? And this is who becomes the Penguin. So I started digging around and looking at like the writer that wrote this story. Like, was he aware of this being a parallel for the story of Moses? And this is what he wrote. He said that he got the parallel for the Penguin killing all the firstborn sons of Gotham. He got it as a parallel to Moses. And so here is the scene where he is saying all the firstborn sons will die.
It's time. These are the names of the firstborn sons of Gotham City, just like I was. And like me, a terrible fate waits for them.
Okay, so the Penguin, is he a good guy or a bad guy?
He's a bad guy in the movie.
He's a bad guy in the movie, right? They show you when he's born, because in the very beginning of the story, when they pushed him and put him in a river, what time of the year is this?
Christmas Day. We
so
often hear that associated with the birth of Christ.
And then it says the story takes place 33 years later, and the Penguin dies in this movie.
So he's born on Christmas Day.
Born on Christmas Day.
33 years later.
Dies 33 years later. That's a Christ type.
And just in case people didn't catch the firstborn sons thing, that was Yahweh, the God of the Bible, said it was the last plague that fell upon Egypt that the firstborn sons would die unless you put the blood of the lamb over your door to protect you. That was the Passover.
Right.
So he's a representation of Yahweh.
So if Batman is a demon or he's a devil, like the
Dark
comic book
Knight.
writer said, the Dark Knight, right? He's always fighting someone of the opposite side, right? And
Right.
he's fighting people who are types of Christs. There's a lot of Christian imagery in these stories that just pops in here. Here's a totally different one that was called Batman Forever. Do you remember that one with the Riddler way back then?
Yeah, this was actually one of my favorites.
Each one of these villains shares attributes with God. Look at, this is Mr. Harvey Dent, Two-Face's lair. Look at the face on the back. Looks like there's a crown of thorns on his head. And I remember when I first saw this, I was like, what in the world is there a piece of art on the back of the wall with a crown of thorns on its head?
The bad guy's lair.
Yeah. And if you look around in this room, you'll see a 7-branch candlestick right there to the left. You'll see an animal roasting on the fire. And you see like what looks and appears to have like smoky, incensey looking stuff raising up. What are those elements of? That's the Jewish sanctuary.
Wow.
And the sanctuary is literally about Jesus. This was God's plan. He called it his master plan, right? How to bring man back into communion with him. There was a whole method that God was trying to show, that you need to realize that you're a sinner, that you need a substitute. That was like bringing the lamb to the sacrificial system. And then moving into the building, there was these articles that were in this building, but all of these things are tied back to Jesus. And the whole thing was one big illustration for Jesus. Yeah. Now, Harvey Dent, Mr. Two-Face, his job was he was a lawyer. I mean, I find that really fascinating that he was a lawyer, because he became the bad guy. And he was like a Two-Face. He was half good and he was half bad, right? And so John 2 verse 1 says, "My children, these things I write to you so that you may not sin. If anyone sins, we have an advocate," which means lawyer, "with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous."
Wow.
So the fact that the bad guy is a lawyer or advocate, and he shares, they call him the White Knight,
who has the sanctuary as his hideout.
Yes, remember they called Batman the Dark Knight, and he was the White Knight. Yeah. You know, this is the opposite end of the spectrum. Advocate is obviously someone who pleads your case in a court of law. And so I just want to show you some imagery here that's pretty fascinating.
So we just looked at that the sanctuary was the bad guy's hideout.
Yes.
And so, okay, we're building a case here.
Yes.
If you see common denominators, you see the Penguin is lowered in a basket. He's going to kill the firstborn sons. He was born on Christmas Day, died at 33. Then you got Two-Face. He's a lawyer, the White Knight. He has his hideout looks like the sanctuary. Is it a shock, or are we reaching that the Joker also is a Christ type?
Okay, so we have this very interesting imagery here with this curtain, this really large curtain. These colors to me are quite interesting, but this is him. He's the man behind the curtain, and when he comes out into the stage to let the world see who the Joker really is, that's some pretty fascinating imagery, because if you look at like what colors were used on the tapestry during the sanctuary, that was like these colors.
Red, blue, purple. He's wearing purple.
Yes.
And the man behind the curtain in the Holy of Holies was Christ.
Right.
He's the one that's in the heavenly sanctuary right now. The Shekinah glory was God, the presence of God. So if he's the man behind the curtain, then he is Christ or God.
That's right. And this idea of the tapestry and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they wanted to highlight this because they made a poster out of it. I mean, this is not just like 10 seconds. Yeah, they liked this scene and they wanted to do that. So getting to the Joker that they are going to release at the end of this year, it's coming out in October. It's very, very interesting. Here, once again, we have him dancing with a woman that's wearing white in the pale moonlight. Yeah. Remember, that was a phrase that the Joker back in
there's a light beaming in on him,
right? And it also is named Folie, yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Folie, yeah. And that means that these people share a delusion. Wow. And so what is that? A little slam on like anybody that buys into the idea of God, that they're all these delusional people. I mean, this is just, once again, I think, a real slam on God or Jesus. Here's him dancing with his woman. Listen to the song in the background. So that was the part of the trailer that they just released.
I'm just noticing the imagery, like he's dancing with the woman in white with the moonlight, and then it changed scenes and like everything's in chaos. Jesus is going to take his bride while the world is being destroyed. I saw fire, ambulances. Mm-hmm. It's like the world is falling apart, but he's dancing with his bride and he's the villain.
Like he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And Revelation 12:1 gives us this picture of a woman that's standing on the moon, that's in white. And it says, "Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet, and with the head on her head a garland of 12 stars."
And this is symbolic of Christ's church, the pure church. There's also a harlot. She represents the corrupt church, but Christ is coming for his true people.
Right. And so there's some imagery in this trailer that they just released that I'm sure you'll pick it out as well. But there's a courthouse scene. That's Harley Quinn in the middle, played by Lady Gaga. And look in the top corner over here. You've got a sign that says guilty as charged, and you have like a cross. And I mean, they're putting all this imagery out there that this is like a legal situation. But then they get released. They get let go. And there's a couple things on this shot that I just wanted to point out as well. Notice it says knock, knock right here. Does that make you think of anything?
Yeah, there's a Bible verse that says that Jesus is at the door. He's even at the door, and he's knocking on the door of your heart.
Right. And the newspaper down here, it says free of any guilt, like totally let go. And in this particular scene where they're going in and out of this courtroom, somebody had taken a video on set.
Oh, wait, you didn't talk about the song.
Oh, yeah. So the song that they're playing was The World Needs Love, right?
The world needs now.
But what kind of an imagery of love are they showing you? They're showing you these sick individuals that are in a romance, and while the world is coming apart, right?
And that's what Jesus is really coming to do. He wants to bring a world built on love. The 10 Commandments are founded on love God, love your neighbor. So what the world needs now is love, but they're showing you this sadistic maniac.
Right. And so there's this kind of really crazy scene where Harley Quinn is walking up the stairs to, and then there's these Christian people in the crowd. Notice how they always put a little dig on Christianity, or like they're just stuck up and they're.
But yeah, we're the ones that always put the Bible in it, right? We're always making it about God or about the Bible. It's always in there.
Right. Here's a clip from behind the scenes of this scene.
She said, "You're going to hell."
So Lady Gaga goes back. I didn't put this in there, but she ends up kissing this girl.
Forcefully grabbing her face and kissing her.
Yeah, but this is just yet another illustration of how they portray Christianity. Like, they're just out there you're going to go to hell.
Yep.
And that's not a true representation of what Christianity is about.
No.
I believe that, we do these kind of videos because we love our fellow humans that are out there, and we want you to not have the wrong picture of God. So we're kind of showing you some of these things that they're painting out here that are just absolute evil, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I hope that this is not representative of all Christianity, but you're right. We need to be able to demonstrate and show love, and not just be out there condemning everybody and stuff like that.
That's right.
They end this trailer with something that's very interesting. Notice he's in white, and what's this?
So you see him in white. His bride is in white. She's walking a illuminated, narrow way. Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the light," or the life. But we know that the path of light leads to Jesus, and they're standing on a sea of glass.
I know.
I mean, this is this could be a representation of the holy city. You see the city and the clouds and the church.
Yeah, and it's sunset,
Yep,
it's
the
like
12th
going
hour.
into the end, yeah. And so there's a lot of these little pieces of imagery that are put out there, and this is not accidental.
No.
In fact, there's a lot of people that will literally watch every second of these trailers and pick out all the things that they're noticing about it.
Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Well, it's so deep. And
so it's not just us that are looking at this with a critical eye. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just diving into all kinds of theories about all sorts of stuff. But why do they keep having this Christian imagery placed throughout here?
I think you're more delusional. When people tell us we're crazy, I think you're more crazy to see this over and over and over and say, you know what, it's all just coincidence, or you're not really seeing it at all. We pointed out over and over and over, we have hundreds of videos that show the common thread. You have to eventually wonder why.
Yep. Yeah. If you see this isn't just this particular Joker movie,
Yeah.
which is totally different writers, different kind of sort of storylines.
Matches the Batman movies.
The Jared Leto Joker there was a lot of things in it like that, like he was in the hanged man position.
Yeah.
So you're now talking about many different production companies that are using lots of different varieties of minds that are putting their ideas in this stuff, and they're keeping these common threads throughout here.
Yeah, whether it's the comics or whether it's the Batman movie, Joker movie, Suicide Squad. Why is Joker always Jesus?
Right, because they believe that he is the holy fool.
Yeah.
In their eyes, he's the one that this is just one big cosmic joke, and that, in the end, God really doesn't care about you. But let me tell you something, God absolutely cares about each and every one of you. And I personally have chosen not to put this junk in my mind. I hope that you make that decision as well. But seriously consider some of these things that we're talking about. If you really do love Jesus, and this is a movie that's blaspheming this kind of depiction of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I would steer clear of this. Don't get sucked in, because the first one had so much hype around it, made $1 billion in a very short amount of time. And so chances are that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, whatever, I'm going to go see this. But really, this is an evil portrayal of, I believe, something grander spiritually. So we hope you guys were blessed by this. leave us a comment. And if you want to see The Replacement Gods, this is the documentary that we made on this. We'll put the link in the description below. But it was an hour and 45-minute documentary that really broke down a lot of the superheroes, where they come from, and went into a lot of detail that was kind of will fit in nicely with what this has brought out.
It's actually my favorite Little Light documentary. It's an oldie but a goodie. It really is timeless, even though it was put out like 2013 or something. It really builds a foundation of where the comic heroes originated, how they all started out as Greek and Roman and Norse gods, and just, when you see it, you can't unsee it. You see the template, you'll see it over and over and over again.
Yep. Thank you guys for stopping by. Leave us a comment, like this video if you want, share it with somebody, and hey, if we missed something and you saw something else that we didn't bring up or whatever, we'd love for you to bring it up, and we'll interact with you about it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys. We love you.